In this video, I'm going to show you how to make this cute infinity scarf with a zippered pocket. And you'll be able to get 2 scarves using only 2 yards of flannel. So here's my 2 yards of flannel, and I'm going to be using this clear ruler so you can see through it. If you don't have one of those, it's okay. You can just use a regular school ruler. Now you're going to need a 9-inch zipper, and I'm going to be showing you how to get 2 scarves out of the 2 yards. So I'm going to be needing 2 zippers. Now for your pocket piece, you're going to need to cut it at 9 inches by 7 inches. And I'm just using a quilting cotton. And you'll need 2 pieces for 1 pocket. So if you're making 2 scarves, you're going to need that times 2. So here's my 2. So I'm going to be using my rotary cutter with my clear ruler. And you will also need some pins and a pin cushion, some kind of marking tool. Mine is a chalk, a coordinating thread, and a good pair of fabric scissors if you don't have the rotary cutter. Also your iron for pressing. Okay, so I've already pre-washed my fabric and shrunk it down with some hot water and a hot dryer. And now I'm just going to clean off some of the excess lint that was left behind. And I'm just going to use this little hair comb to help me get the lint off. Alright, so I'm going to trim my selvage down. I've opened up my fabric, so it's just 1 layer, and I'm just cutting kind of right down the center of the selvage, and I'm leaving like about 2/8 of an inch. Now here's where the clear ruler comes in really handy. You can put it right on top of your fabric and you can see right through it. So you can measure a 2/8 of an inch seam, and you can see right through the ruler and use your rotary cutter to cut it. Makes it so much easier. Alright, now I'm just going to keep on going till I get to the end. Okay, so now I'm going to trim off these ends. So I'm going to fold it in half, matching up my corners, and straightening it all out, matching up the selvage edges. It's good to have a nice flat surface, nice big table to work on. Alright, now I'm just going to smooth it all out and get that fold really nice and straight. Okay, now I'm just going to use my iron and press my fold and get it nice and crisp, because I'm going to be cutting it right along the fold. And now I'm going to use my long ironing board to help me lay it out. And I'm just going to use my scissors and cut right down the fold, cutting the fabric in half. I like my slippers. That's how I roll. And there you go. Now you have 2 pieces, so you can make 2 scarves. I'm just going to separate them. Okay, so now I'm just going to fold it up in half lengthwise, matching up my long sides. Now if I were to try to match up the cut end, I'm going to show you how sometimes your fold won't lay flat. So that means it wasn't cut straight on the grain. So just slide it down a little bit until your fold lays flat. And then I'm going to need to trim off that edge to make that straight. All right, now I'm going to do one side at a time, and I'm going to show you two different ways. If you just have a ruler and scissors, just make sure you mark it with something. I'm lining it up with the grids on my blue mat here. And just carefully trim it off straight. So now I'm going to do the other side with my rotary cutter to show you how quick and easy that will be. I'm just going to line it up with the lines on the grid. Using my clear ruler, I line up the lines in the ruler also with the grid to make sure that I'm cutting it perfectly straight. Alright, so now I'm going to open up the fabric, and I'm going to be marking where I'm going to put the zipper using my clear ruler. I'm going to line it up, and I'm going to be marking 10 inches. So in order to mark both pieces of fabric, fold it up, matching the corners, and then just fold it down like about an inch with your marker. Just mark at the 10-inch point on both sides. Alright, so now just open it up again, and we're going to take one of our zippers and turn it upside down, and we're going to be placing the top of the zipper tape right there at the mark, and it's going to be lined up on the edge of the fabric. Alright, now just take one of your pocket pieces, and we're going to lay it face down right on top of the zipper. And you're going to have a tiny bit of the tape sticking out on each side, and it's going to be lined up with the edge of the fabric and the zipper. And now I'm going to pin through all 3 layers at about 3/8 of an inch away from the edge. That's going to be my stitching line. Okay, just checking to make sure with my seam gauge, and you can feel the zipper underneath, so make sure you are not pinning through the zipper teeth. Alright, so at the very top of the zipper, I'm going to pull that little tab out. I'm going to pin it down so it's not getting caught in the seam. Okay, so now we're going to stitch this on. Now, using a zipper foot, my foot has 2 different sides you can put it on. I'm going to start off on the left side. Alright, so now I'm just going to be stitching it on with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and I can use the width of the toe of my zipper foot here to measure because it's 3/8 of an inch wide. Alright, now I'm just using a straight stitch here. Make sure you don't stitch over your pins. Alright, so when I'm about halfway there, I'm going to stop with my needle in the down position but kind of high. I'm going to lift my presser foot and turn the fabric because I want to move the zipper head just to make it easier to stitch by it really close. Okay, now just turn your fabric back around and continue stitching. Alright, so right here I'm going to make sure I'm not going to stitch over that little metal piece that's a zipper stop at the top. Just make sure that it is to the left of your needle. Just go real slow at the end. And I want to make sure that the end of the little zipper tape is to the outside. Okay, let me show you what that's supposed to look like. So now I'm going to take it back to the ironing board and flip up in my pocket, and I'm just going to do a little press of the pocket to make sure it lays away from the zipper. All right, now close your zipper back up, and we're going to flip the whole thing to the back. And I'm going to press it again just to make sure the top fabric lays away from the zipper also. Alright, so just fold it back up, and we're going to be putting the other side of the pocket on. So we're going to flip this over. Alright, so I need to get rid of my ironing board real quick. I'm going to be matching the other half of the zipper up to the other side of the fabric. Now you just take the other pocket piece, lay it right on top, matching the edge with the zipper and the fabric and the sides of the pockets. And we're going to be pinning it on. I'm going to pin going the other direction because I'm going to be stitching on this side now. Alright, so now once again we're going to make sure the little edge of the zipper tape is sticking out and pin it down in place so it'll stay out of the way. So this time I'm going to be starting at the top of the zipper, so I want to make sure that I can get past the bulk of the zipper head, but let me stitch in a few stitches first. Stop with my needle down, and then I'm going to turn it so that I can move that zipper. This time I'm going to have to go inside and carefully just open the zipper a little bit. Alright, now I'm going to straighten it out and turn it back so I can stitch in a few more inches. So I'm going to have to move the zipper again. And just like before, I'm going to stick my hand in there and I'm going to pull the zipper closed. And then I'm just going to turn my fabric back around and continue stitching down the length of the zipper. Okay, just make sure you stitch across the end of the zipper. Okay, so if you open it up at this point, it should look just like this. And now I'm just going to give it a quick press on this side to make sure that the pocket lays away from the zipper. Okay, so now we're going to be pinning it all together to close up the pocket. So we need to match up the edges of the pocket, the corners of the scarf, and the open long ends. First, I'm going to need to open the zipper a little bit. Just about halfway is good. So the corners should match up nicely, but it's more important that the two zipper tapes match up. And just line up those two chalk marks that you made. Just get it all straightened out, match up the edges of the pocket. So basically you're just like folding the zipper in half right there at the end. Now 2 inches away from the corner is where I'm going to start my stitching. So I'm going to put a pin right here so I know that's where I'm going to start. And I'm going to have another stopping point or starting point 2 inches away from that corner. Now this next step, I'm going to be marking my corners at a 1/2 inch. It's not completely necessary for you to do this when you become more advanced, but I like to show newer sewists, less advanced people, you know, some little tricks to help you be a little more accurate, especially when going around corners. I'm also going to mark a 1/2 inch in this corner by the zipper, and I'm feeling for that metal zipper end, so to make sure I don't stitch on top of it or too close to it. It should be 1/2 inch is good. Now I'm going to start stitching here out to the corners and then to that short end, and then on this other side to the long end. Now using the 1/2 inch seam allowance, I'm just going to start my needle right where that pin was, and I'm going to back stitch here. This is the opening for which you're going to turn the scarf inside out. Alright, so when you get up to the zipper, you're going to make sure that metal piece is to the left of your needle, and I'm checking underneath using a flat tool. I'm making sure that the seams are all pointed up so it's not too bulky. Now since I marked it at a 1/2 inch right here, I know exactly where to stop my needle and turn. So I'm still at a 1/2 inch on this side. So right here I can actually switch my zipper foot to the other side with the needle in the down position. This makes it a lot easier to get around the bottom of that zipper. Now do a back stitch right here so that your seam doesn't come open when you're turning the scarf. Alright, now the same thing on the other side. I'm just going to switch my zipper foot over to the right and make sure you leave that opening on the bottom of the pocket for turning. Just make sure that you check again that the seams are pointing up. Now we're going to turn again right where you marked the 1/2 inch point, and you're going to flip the zipper foot over to the other side again. Now just stitch down the rest of the length of the scarf. And I'm still using a 1/2 inch seam allowance right here. Now I'm just going to trim the corners of the pockets. Okay, now I'm going to make sure that the zipper is open on the inside. And starting at this short end, I'm going to stick my arm all the way down, keeping the seam on the top of my arm. I'm going to go to the end and grab, pinch the seam, and just hang on to that seam and pull it back through. And now I'm going to match up those two seams together. Now we're going to straighten it all out, and it should lay flat like this. That's how you know that it's not twisted on the inside. All right, now matching up those seams, we're going to pin it around this edge. I'm just going to straighten it out, pin halfway, kind of quarter it, pin it on each quarter section. And that should fit together nice and even. Now I'm going to take off the zipper foot and just put a straight stitch foot on. I'm going to remove this little extension table so that I can slide the end of the scarf on. And I'm going to start the stitching right on the seam, and I'm going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance from the edge. Alright, now we're just going to start turning it right through this little pocket. And it helps if you fold up your scarf and then just kind of start shoving everything inside of it. And just start pulling the rest of the scarf out through the pocket. Okay, now we're going to close up the hole in the pocket. We're just going to smooth the seam down and match up the two edges, folding it in, making it lay nice and flat. So I'm just going to do a finger press. And I'm going to pin it right at the opening. That's where I know where to start stitching, and I'm going to put a pin right at the end so I know where to stop. And this is where I'm going to put my little label in. So if you don't have one of these, you can skip this. I'm just going to pin it right there in the center. Now I'm just going to stitch this closed, starting right there at that first pin. Now I want to show you this little straight stitch foot that I'm using. It has these tiny little marks right here, so you can do 1/8 of an inch or 2/8 of an inch or 3/8 of an inch seam. Very handy. And then just make sure you back stitch at both ends. Now I'm just going to trim up all my loose threads and I'm pretty much done. So there you go. There's the finished scarf with the pocket that you can hide your keys or your cell phone or whatever you want in there. And now you have enough to make a second one. This is how you wear your scarf. You start with the back seam, goes around your neck, and the zipper is going to be on the bottom. So you just twist it, put it over your head. So then you have your zipper right here in front.